Ever since the news of the NAR settlement broke in March, it has been nothing short of total chaos. I know you all have very strong feelings about this. Believe me, I feel you. I've read all your comments. The consumers are going crazy. The comments on this channel alone, like, blow my mind. But here's the thought. If Joe Biden were a realtor, how many of you would hire him to list and sell your house? I mean, with his stellar economy and excellent track record of managing money and being fiscally responsible, just going to the printing press and making more of it when you start to run out, who would not want this man to negotiate the sale of their house?
We have the strongest economy in the world.
How bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
Let me say it again, in the world.
How'd that happen? My memory is so bad. I guess I just forgot what was going on.
Yeah, I didn't think so. As you all know by now, I personally identify as non-binary.
We are all non-binary, and I think everyone should just come out as such. We all hate Biden. Tell me I'm wrong.
I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. That's funny right there. So I was not shocked when I read this article yesterday from HousingWire talking about how 70% of realtors were not happy with the terms of the NAR proposed settlement. So I guess the good news is that it has everyone talking, right? For a very long time, consumers have not understood what realtors do. They didn't understand how we got paid, why we got paid, what we got paid, who paid it and when. They think that we are highly overpaid for doing very little work. And part of that, as I've talked about in previous videos, is because we make it look so easy and we never told them exactly how it all works. So how can we be upset that the general public doesn't understand how hard we work and what we do for the money and how we work for free for days and weeks and months and years on end sometimes before the transaction ever closes and you finally receive your paycheck and get reimbursed for all of the costs that you incurred while you were doing this transaction. So if I'm trying to look on the bright side and be a little bit of a Pollyanna, at least this is opening up a dialogue where we can have this conversation and let the general public know how it all works so they don't just jump to the conclusion that we are highly overpaid and we don't do anything. There is clearly a massive disconnect between what the consumers think and what the agents think. So let's go take a look at this article and see exactly what it said. A new survey from Clever Real Estate found that 70% of agents oppose NAR settlement, while 67%, almost the same amount, support it from consumers. So Clever Real Estate, I don't know exactly who that is, did this survey in April 2024. Now, it only polled 1,000 consumers and 331 agents. So I think it's a bit of a stretch to say 70% of all agents when you asked 331 out of 1.5 million realtors. But 70% of the 331 agents that they asked, or even it says practicing real estate professionals. Also highlighting the discrepancy between agents and consumers is that 71% of agents anticipate negative repercussions due to the settlement. 58% of agents believe the changes will have a negative impact on their business. Only 15% believe it will have a positive impact on their business. And of the ones who believe that the settlement will have a negative impact, 88% of those say it will discourage first-time buyers from entering the market. 82% say that the changes hurt buyers, and 42% believe the changes will also negatively impact sellers. Now, this part about the sellers is actually really interesting to me because all of the stuff that we've been talking about is all talking about the buyers. The sellers, yes, they could theoretically not pay the buyer's agent, and therefore they're going to pay less in their commission. But how does it negatively impact them? Fewer buyers coming to see your house. If the buyer doesn't have the extra cash lying around to pay their own agent and they are not physically able to come out of pocket and pay the agent themselves, they cannot come see your house unless you are willing to pay their representative. So when the housing headlines came out in March and they said house prices are going to go down, I was thinking to myself, they might indeed, but not because the cost involved in selling the house is going to go down. It's because when you put your house on the market and no one comes to look at it, what do? You drop the price. So yes, house prices might possibly come down because the sellers were forced to drop the price in order to get more people to come and look at it in the first place. We all know as real estate professionals, if we put a house on the market and in the first 10 days, no one comes to look at it, there is no reason other than the price. If it were priced correctly, people would come and see it. If no one is coming to see it, it's because of the price. Even the worst house in the worst neighborhood that backs up to the railroad tracks and faces a garbage dump will sell if the price is right. So no showings in the first 10 days, it's all about the price. If we get showings in the first 10 days and no offers, it's usually the price. So again, if house prices come down, this is the reason. It's not because the home seller only had to pay this percent instead of this percent. That's just nonsense. I sound like a little old lady when I say, it's just nonsense, I tell you. But back to the article, let's see what the consumers had to say. Consumers who support the changes, 44% of them believe that the changes will ease the financial burden on sellers. 41% believe that they will create a more level playing field between buyers and sellers. 32% say that the changes will improve trust. 29% say that they give their consumers more flexibility in choosing services. See, I don't even understand where that comes from. 29% say they will give the consumers more flexibility in choosing services. It's always been the consumer's prerogative to hire or not hire whoever the heck they want. Nobody has to be represented in a real estate transaction. You and I know this. We've been saying this for years and years and years, and especially a lot more in the last couple of months. No one has to hire a realtor or a real estate agent to represent them in a transaction ever. And you could always hire whoever the heck you wanted. We don't all charge the same price. We don't all charge the same flat fee or commission rate. We don't all have the same skills. I mean, gosh, I was still doing transactions even 5 years ago where the agent did not understand how to use DocuSign and .loop, and we had to physically deliver a hard copy to her office so that she could sign it because she didn't know how to sign it electronically and then scan it and return it. So not all agents are made the same. So I do wish that they had interviewed a lot more than 331 agents, because all of the people on this channel overwhelmingly have said they did not agree with the settlement at all. They wished that NAR had continued to fight in court. I understand why they didn't. I can't even imagine how much money it costs to keep going to court and appealing and fighting and fighting and fighting. And NAR came right out after my original video where I said, if they keep fighting this, they're probably going to have to declare bankruptcy. They made a statement where they said, we would have to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy because we can't just keep bleeding money like this. We were found guilty in the original lawsuit. And to appeal and keep going back and fighting and fighting and fighting has got to be unbearably expensive. I understand why they settled. However, what I don't understand is where the terms of the settlement came from. Who made these suggestions? Who offered these up and thought that they were all a really good idea? On my last video, I talked all about how I think that people are really putting themselves in a very bad position to be accused of violating fair housing laws. And if you haven't seen that one, I'm going to link it up here. You can watch it when we're done. But more so than transparency of just knowing what is being offered, if anything, and whether or not that is negotiable, like we're putting ourselves in a position where any person, a buyer's agent, a consumer, could allege that we are not all playing by the same rules because none of this is being publicly disclosed. Which brings me to the Department of Justice, who said they don't think that commissions should be discussed anywhere, definitely not in the MLS, but they don't think it should be discussed anywhere else. And in the terms of the settlement, the way that people are saying, well, it won't be in the MLS anymore, but we can disclose it on our own company brokerage website. We can discuss it on our own personal landing page. When I take a listing and I tell you all about the property, that I could put it in there. They're talking about ways that they can still let other agents know that a commission is being offered and how much. And apparently the DOJ completely disagrees with that. And I just want to know why. Why are you so against transparency? Why do you think that we should not be able to discuss with the other parties in the transaction who is being paid and how much. In fact, from the buyer's agent's perspective, usually I had no idea what the listing agent was making. I know what they were offering me through the MLS, but I had no idea what they were being paid until we got a signed document called Instructions to the Closing Attorney, which clearly spelled out this much to the seller's agency, this much to the buyer's agency. Until that moment, once we were already under contract and ready to go to the closing table, I had no idea what the seller was being paid. Why is it a bad idea for everyone to know upfront? I will never understand why the DOJ thinks that this is a bad idea. Which brings me to the next article that's talking all about the Department of Justice. Boston Agent Magazine said that MLS PIN, maybe it's PIN, I'm going to say MLS PIN because that's just what I think it is, challenges DOJ opinion in buyer broker commission antitrust case. The MLS Property Information Network has responded to the Department of Justice's opinion in an antitrust lawsuit concerning buyer broker commission practices, arguing that it creates an antitrust issue for the organization and infringes on its First Amendment rights. Can I get an amen? I wish more realtor associations, MLSs, NAR would stand up and make a position like this publicly. Oh, I love this. The 29-page response addresses the National Association of REALTORS March settlement agreement to end ongoing broker commission litigation and its impact on the class action Nosalek lawsuit. I'm probably butchering that name as well. So, as it goes down, NAR offered its opinion in February on the case, asking the court to deny preliminary approval, saying that it still gives sellers and their listing brokers a role in setting compensation for buyers' brokers. First, the only guaranteed benefit, love the air quotes, to class members under the settlement is an injunction mandating certain changes to MLS PIN's buyer broker commission rule, the DOJ said in its response. These changes, however, would not create competition or reduce commissions. Instead, the settlement merely prescribes cosmetic changes authorizing sellers to offer $0 commissions instead of the current minimum of 1 cent. So in a lot of places, they said you had to put at least $1 in the MLS. Apparently in this one, it was 1 penny. But virtually no one will exercise that option for the same reason they don't offer 1 cent now. The modified rule still gives sellers and their listing brokers a role in setting compensation for buyers' brokers. MLS PIN filed its response Monday. MLS PIN says the DOJ's position not only goes far, far beyond what antitrust law requires, it also creates an antitrust problem for MLS PIN where none existed. PIN cannot enter into an agreement to ban the publication of free market compensation offers without offending the very antitrust properties DOJ claims to be protecting, the response says. Mic drop. To impose such a ban through a federal injunction would also suppress speech that is protected under the First Amendment. DOJ never denies that sellers have the right to compensate buyer brokers. It only advocates arbitrary restraints on the communication of compensation offers. I love this. Notably, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court has recognized buyer broker commissions for over 100 years. Not only are these practices approved, they are widely recognized as beneficial to consumers, particularly first-time home buyers and others at risk of exclusion from the housing market. It is little wonder that DOJ's position has been met with swift criticism by experts who say that it is the worst possible outcome for millions of home buyers. And to this, I say bravo, MLS PIN. I am so glad people are pushing back against the government, against the DOJ, against some of the things that are happening to our industry right now. I mean, if I had $1 for every time the government got something right, I'd still be waiting for that commission check. If you're a realtor and you're one of the 70%, tell me in the comments below. You know I want to hear all of your thoughts. And if you're a consumer and you think that this was the greatest decision since sliced bread, tell me that too. I would love to hear from you. Respectfully, of course. And realtors, if you are like me and you identify as non-binary, remember the biggest thing you can do is tell the administration how you feel with your vote. November is going to be here before you know it.